Hello, and welcome to the Family Church's online worship service. I'm glad you're with us today.
This is a reading from John chapter 21, verses 1 through 6. Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way: Simon, Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two other disciples were together. "I'm going out to fish," Simon Peter told them, and they said, "We'll go with you." So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, "Friends, haven't you any fish?" "No," they answered. He said, "Throw your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish.
So today's message is about another one of Jesus' miracles. We're doing a series on the miracles of Jesus over the several weeks, last couple weeks, and for a few more. This one's a little different than the other ones we've dealt with because this one happened after Jesus died and was crucified and then resurrected to heaven. Now, with him being no longer here on earth as a person, that meant that the disciples were supposed to be going out and doing the work on their own. And this stressed them out. So once again, the disciples did what they did every time they got stressed out. They went fishing. They recognized that they didn't have Jesus kind of telling them everything to do anymore, and they were supposed to go out and preach and start churches. And they were overwhelmed, and they were in a time of grief. Well, they were fishing with nets, and they caught nothing. Since they didn't have jobs, and Jesus wasn't bringing in offerings or gifts anymore, they were probably hoping to at least come out ahead on the fishing. But they got nothing. All night they had their nets out, not even one little fish. And then Jesus appeared and told them to fish out of the other side of the boat. Now, I have had times where I was fishing and the person on the other end or the other side of my boat was catching everything and I was catching nothing, or vice versa. But fishing with a net, a big net, it should not have been so different. They didn't catch a fish all night, and then in a matter of minutes, they had 153 fish. So many that they couldn't lift the net and they had to tow it to shore as they rowed and then drag the net up on shore. They had breakfast and enough fish so they could sell a bunch and cover groceries for a while too. Henry David Thoreau once wrote that many men go fishing their whole lives without realizing it's not fish they're after. Jesus reappeared to the disciples to motivate them. They were stuck in a rut. They needed to get going on this Christianity thing. So he appeared to them and gave them one more little miracle. I can remember a few times where I had a fishing experience that seemed like a miracle. You know, where you're not catching anything, or even for multiple days, and then suddenly they start biting, or you figure out the trick, and then you just can't stop catching fish. I have one mounted fish that I own. I didn't catch this fish. It's a reminder to me of the time my dad and I were catching a whole bunch of bluegills this size. We took a photo of them and weighed them and sent the photo into a fishing contest in northern Wisconsin. I think I was 14 or 15 years old. It was back when you had to take your film in and get the pictures printed, and we only had one copy of the photo and we submitted it. I don't even have a picture of that day anymore. When my fishing buddy died 9 years ago, his wife was getting ready to move and was clearing out all the stuff. And so I bought this fish mount from her so that I could remember the day that my dad and I caught all those fish that were this big, and so I could remember my friend too. He had a lot of fishing stories, and he fished about 200 days a year, most years. He had multiple long trips he took fishing, and he was a teacher, and so he had the summer off. And so in between summer school and whatever time he had, he would get out fishing. One time, he went out with his friends, and they caught 5 walleyes over 30 inches. They were young, and they didn't think it was a big deal. They went into the bar and restaurant near the boat landing and showed off the fish, and then threw them in the back of the pickup truck and went inside to eat. And the fish were gone when they came out. They didn't have a picture either. And in 40 years of fishing after that, he never caught another walleye over 30 inches. We have this photo here of Mandy by her dock at her family cabin. That's her with the Cabbage Patch doll. They had 1 million bluegills around that dock, and you can see her and her sisters here feeding them bread. Whenever it was time to fish, the little toddlers and preschoolers could get their fishing poles out and they could catch them one right after another. Here's a shot of my son a few years ago in Florida. We were out fishing not too far from shore in the Gulf and fishing for, little eater fish. And he managed to catch 2 sharks in an hour. We both still have all our fingers. My best fishing days have been on recent trips to Canada. We've had 75 or 100 walleyes per person a day. One time in Florida, I went out with some acquaintances, and we were fishing for grouper. They're really popular if you've ever been to Florida. They're a big deal in restaurants. They're commercially fished. It's very rare to catch a big grouper because they're so popular. And a friend of a friend was a professional fishing captain and had lived in the Gulf, and his dad was a fishing captain, so he had fished there his whole life and fished almost every day of the year, taking groups out. We were catching so many grouper way over the size limit. I mean, lifetime trophy-sized grouper. I caught over 100 trophy grouper in one day. My hands and arms weren't working anymore. And the other guys I was with were older, and some of them had arthritis in their hands. We had to quit because we just couldn't reel in anymore. For most people, a great day fishing is memorable, and it gives us a story to tell. But it's usually just fishing. For the disciples, it represented more. Some of them were professional fishermen before they quit to follow Jesus. And even for the professional fishermen, the amount of the fish in this net was miraculous. They had never filled their net that much, even having it out all night. And here they caught that many in a few minutes. And it was a reminder to them of when they were recruited to be disciples. Jesus had told them, "Come and follow me, and I will make you fish for people." They had been his assistants ever since, helping to draw people into the faith. And now it was time for them to go out and do it on their own. And they didn't have confidence that they could do it. They had been used to people just showing up because they could get healed or because they had heard all these stories about Jesus. They used his celebrity status to get everybody excited. And all they had to do was kind of the grunt work or the side stuff, maybe pray with some people. When their net got instantly filled with all those fish, it was impossible for them to miss the symbolism. They needed to stop doing what they were doing, which was grieving and stepping on their own feet and worrying about how they could possibly accomplish all these tasks and fish out of the other side of the boat. They needed to try something new, and God would help them be successful at fishing for people. And they were. Now, this is an interesting story in that it lists the names of disciples, and it doesn't tell us who all the disciples were that were there that day. It gives some of the names. And the names we know, well, they were pretty successful. Thomas. He was the guy, known as Doubting Thomas, because the last time Jesus had appeared to him, he didn't believe it. He ended up going all the way to India. If you look at a map, Israel and India are a long way apart. He started 7 churches there. And today, we know India is mostly Hindu and some Muslim. But there are over 27 million Christians in India. It's a pretty big payoff for one guy's work. James, he started the church right there in Jerusalem with Peter, and he remained a leader there. Lots of leaders were sent out from that church, and there are still Christians there today. People are sometimes surprised to find out that we hear about Palestine in Israel and the area where the Arabs live versus the Jews. Most of those Arabs living in Palestine are Christians, and many of them are descended from that church. John helped with the church at Ephesus. That's a city in Greece. It's the church we hear about in Ephesians. And he wrote 3 letters, which are now books of the Bible. And the church that he started there in Ephesus was the beginning of the Eastern Orthodox Church. Now that's a separate branch. And that church spread all over Europe and Asia. And they have 220 million members today. And then there's Peter. He started the churches in Antioch and Rome and helped with others. The church in Rome became much bigger and branched out. It eventually became the center of Christianity, what became the Catholic Church. There's a document. I have it somewhere in a box. And it shows who Peter ordained as leaders, and then who those leaders ordained to be pastors or clergy as well, and so on, all the way down, hundreds and hundreds of years to John Wesley, and then John Wesley and the people he ordained, and eventually the Bishop of Wisconsin, and then down at the bottom of the page is me. All the Protestant denominations have branched off from there. I know sometimes it seems like people don't go to church as much anymore, but there are 1.3 billion Catholics and another billion Protestants worldwide, all descended from that church that Peter started. He was the favorite disciple of Jesus. Maybe it's because Jesus knew Peter would be the MVP. It's been a hard couple of years of COVID. It hasn't done any favors for church attendance. But worship participation online by people who weren't participating in a church before, that is way up. That's fishing out the other side of the boat. The church has long been known for being segregated, but we're making progress, churches all over, at reaching out to groups who aren't just like us. That's fishing out of the other side of the boat. The family church, when it was started, was all about fishing out of the other side of the boat, reaching out to families who wanted to be with their children in worship and using a different worship style. Every time you have an opportunity to share something about what you believe, every time you tell somebody else about your church, you are throwing a line in the water, a line that is connected directly to those disciples and to Jesus. A lot of times when we go out fishing, we're lucky to get a nibble. We might get skunked and not get any fish. But we know in fishing, the more times you try, the better the odds are that one time you'll make a great cast and catch the fish of your life. And the same thing goes true for reaching out in faith. We know that when we invite somebody to church, when we tell somebody about our beliefs, when we share something the pastor said on Sunday, it might fall on deaf ears. But this might be the time that you make a connection that leads to something great happening with the help of God. Amen.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Thanks again for joining us at the Family Church. We love to have you online. It's so exciting to see how many people are watching our video. And we have a couple ways that you can participate. If you're local, coming up on March 20th, we will be serving the meal at Pillars. And that is a meal for people who are homeless or in difficult financial straits. That Sunday, we'll need some volunteers to help donate and prepare food ahead of time, and then actually take it over to the site and serve the meal for dinner that night. It's located right near our church, just a mile or so away. And if you're farther away and you want to contribute, you can certainly make a donation and mark it for Pillars, and that will help pay for the food. Another opportunity that would work even if you're not local and you want to join us, we're doing a mission trip April 7th to 9th down to the Midwest Mission Distribution Center in Springfield, Illinois. They have a whole host of mission projects that you can volunteer to work on. The only requirement is you have to be at least 11 years old. The cost is $99 to $159 depending on how many people stay in your room. We'll be staying in a dorm. There are real showers and bathrooms and everything. It's a secure location, safe place, and we'll be masked while we're working together in a group in the facilities. So if you're interested, send a Facebook message, and we'll be happy to get you all the info. Thanks again for joining us. If you'd like to make a contribution, you'll see a screen in a moment that gives you a QR code and directions on how you can make a contribution. And another way you can contribute is if you were moved by today's video, share it. Click like below, and if you'd like to share it, we have found that on weeks when we have just 3 or 4 people sharing our video, that it ends up reaching dozens more people. So we thank you for sharing and also for participating today, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Wanna be where the river is flowing. Wanna be where the wind is blowing. Wanna be a part of what God's doing. Wanna be where the Spirit is moving. I wanna see the glory of the Lord. Give yourselves a hand.